Hey, everybody. I think that right now, the world is at a bit of a crossroads with AI and LLMs in particular, in that the pressure is there, the hype is there. Not a lot has changed on that level, but we've all had a round of doing an AI pilot, and some of them didn't go very well. And there are a lot of reasons why, some of which are relatively prosaic and technical. But in this video, I'd like to focus on one big thing about framing I think is often more or less fatal, and I am sure is slowing a lot of people down out there. At the end of the day, humans and AI touch each other, and you have to think about AI as a thing that enhances humans. That human needs to know how to use it. And if you neglect that part too much, you're exactly setting the stage for all the warts of LLMs to manifest out of control and sink what you're doing. So I'm going to talk really briefly about just my personal experience learning about these things. I'm going to revisit some backroom misery about another big IT trend of the past, data science. And I'm going to revisit an unfortunate, torturously greatest / worst of all time hallucination embarrassment at the National Eating Disorder Association to try to make this point for you that you really need to be thinking about enhancing some employee. And that employee needs to be talented in using the tool you are giving them. For a guy that makes all these videos, I was initially a generative AI skeptic. And how I initially came to that state of mind was I had absorbed this prevailing ideology like AI is all about you're just supposed to grunt at it, and it's all on the AI to get you what you want. And I came to realize, actually in the process of making videos about how ChatGPT was not as cool as anybody thought, that, well, you have to learn how to use it. And there's a bit of an art, and it's not like dealing with a person, but it has a lot of the pitfalls of dealing with a person, and that person's probably capable of a whole lot, good and bad, and you've got to talk to them in the right way. And after I had that epiphany, I started getting a ton of value out of LLM. I have since made a lot of videos for your consumption talking about, well, maybe you should be doing that too. Let me revisit data science now. And I'm going to visit data science exactly to talk about, well, it's just not all about being smart or having just raw intellectual firepower. It's about culture and communication. We always talk, especially in the business world, a lot more loudly about good things that go right. And in some ways, it's a real problem because there's a lot more to be learned from stories about what goes wrong. When data science was a rising trend, the backroom cry in the beer story you would hear from a lot of managers and executives is, well, we hired all these really smart people with PhDs in the sciences, engineering, mathematics, and we thought we were going to get all this amazing business value out of them, and they just kind of crawled in their hole and got obsessed with weird nerd stuff, and like we couldn't get them on the same page with what we wanted, and it was just a big, torturous waste of time and money. And so what I want to point out here is the smartness isn't really one-dimensional, and the journey people go on to be that kind of smart has a lot of culture that comes with it. And it's especially someone entry-level just coming to the workforce, it's not going to be the same culture as the company. So there's this danger of, do these high-powered intellectual types doing all this quantitative, fancy, arcane reasoning communicate well, and vice versa, with people on the business side thinking about business problems. And in some cases, the answer was no. These two camps did not communicate well, and it was a bad outcome. And I guess since I'm here mostly talking to the business side, you hire a bunch of statisticians and they get real obsessed with some p-value or f statistic, and well, that's not really of interest to you, but that's what's of interest in the culture that they come from. And if you don't see this and you don't raise these issues explicitly and have a conversation, and the conversation looks a lot like prompting in the LLM world, well, you're going to get output that isn't the right output, and it's going to cause a problem because you can't use it for what you wanted to use it for. So I think there's a whole lot of great analogy here of, well, it doesn't matter, and it's never going to matter, even if you had some science fictional, artificial, general intelligence. Well, do you know how to talk to it? And, well, now we're presuming it's smarter than us, which is going to make it more of a subtle problem, requiring more specific expertise to get that communication correct. So, once again, just like, you need to do a good job managing an employee, you need to do a good job communicating with your AI. And I think one reason a lot of people are having trouble is that this issue is unaddressed because we would love AI to be something that just does all the work out of sight and we never think about it again. I don't think that world is really ever coming. Now for a specific LLM example, there was an amazingly nightmarish incident, and I feel a little bad I'm bringing it up again, at the National Eating Disorder Association some time ago that had a vaguely LLM-powered chatbot for talking to people that were having crises with their eating disorders. And it started doing the worst thing it could do, which was giving people advice about how to go on dangerous crash diets, and in general, doing the exact opposite of what it was supposed to be doing. This is the hallucination problem. It's an interesting example because customer service, talking to people on a hotline, is one of the areas where the replace narrative of AI functions a little bit better. Yet, if you were running a human call center, you would never just turn a bunch of people loose, however smart you thought they were, with no supervision, no training, no oversight. But then this is a lot like what the National Eating Disorder Association did with their chatbot, and that when it came to light that this bot was behaving in this terrible way, they initially denied it, and they threatened to sue, I think I recall. And it looked a whole lot to me like they just didn't know what it was doing because they were not monitoring it. And that's where the dream of just replacement takes you, that you don't have to look at this thing, you don't have to think about how you communicate it with it, how other people communicate with it. And in this case, the result was a really, really, really bad outcome. Just a closing thought, I used to follow the cybersecurity world more closely. If you examine a disaster in cybersecurity, it's never a story that's only about computers. There's always an important part of the story about where humans and computers touch. You can maybe design a perfect system in and of itself, but then to the extent people interact with the system, that interface point, human to computer, is always going to be the problem where things come up. And it's all about, are we really respecting the problem of talking to the machine the way we respect the problem of talking to another person? I think for a lot of you out there, this is really the answer to the riddle. Enhance, don't replace.